The stranded pilot lit a fire only to bring the planet's native huntresses out of hiding. Kyle Mercer's eyes fluttered open to a world of white and pain. The bitter cold bit through his flight suit despite its thermal lining, and the taste of copper lingered in his mouth. His fighter, the SSV Artemis, lay in twisted ruins around him, black smoke curling into an alien sky where unfamiliar stars were beginning to appear. "System check," he croaked, his voice barely audible over the howling wind. His neural implant flickered to life, projecting data across his field of vision. Pilot status: multiple contusions, possible concussion, core temperature dropping. Ship status: catastrophic failure, emergency beacon damage, location unknown. "Well, that's just fantastic," Kyle muttered, pushing himself to his feet. The memory came back in flashes. The ambush by Scythian raiders, his desperate evasive maneuvers, the decision to dive into the atmosphere of this uncharted planet rather than face certain death in the vacuum of space. He'd survived, for now. Kyle stumbled through the wreckage, salvaging what he could. The emergency kit was intact, though its contents were pathetically inadequate for an alien world. A basic med kit, some nutrient bars, a multi-tool, and a small plasma lighter. Night was falling fast, and with it came a bone-deep cold that made his teeth chatter. Kyle's military training kicked in: shelter, heat, signal, in that order. Using debris from the Artemis, he constructed a makeshift windbreak. Then, gathering what flammable materials he could find, seat cushioning, insulation, and some local vegetation that resembled dry brush, he set to work building a fire. The plasma lighter sputtered in his trembling hands. "Come on, you piece of—" The flame caught, and soon a small fire blazed before him, casting golden light across the frozen landscape and illuminating his face with its warm glow. Kyle pulled the damaged emergency beacon from his pack. If he could repair it, maybe the United Earth Fleet would find him before he froze or starved. His fingers, stiff with cold, worked methodically on the delicate circuitry. So focused was he on his task that he didn't notice the subtle shift in the environment around him. The local wildlife, which had been making faint chittering sounds since dusk, had fallen completely silent. It wasn't until he heard the soft crunch of snow that Kyle's head snapped up, hand instinctively moving to the pulse pistol at his hip. 3 figures stood at the edge of his camp, illuminated by the firelight. Humanoid in form, but unmistakably alien. Their skin had a silvery luminescence that seemed to reflect the starlight, and their eyes, pale, almost colorless, studied him with predatory intensity. The one in front, clearly the leader, took a step forward. She was tall and lithe, with platinum hair braided tightly over one shoulder. Her attire consisted of fitted gray bands and light fabric that left little to the imagination while somehow conveying both deadly capability and an otherworldly allure. A bow was gripped in her slender hand, and Kyle could see the arrows in the quiver strapped to her back. Her companions, similarly dressed, remained slightly behind her, weapons at the ready. Time seemed to freeze as Kyle locked eyes with the Huntress. His heart hammered in his chest, adrenaline flooding his system. Fight or flight? Neither seemed like a good option. The alien woman's lips curled into what might have been a smile, though it did nothing to soften the predatory gleam in her eyes. Slowly, deliberately, she lowered her weapon, though her gaze never left him. It was a gesture, Kyle realized, not of surrender, but of curiosity. "Well," Kyle said, breaking the silence, his voice steadier than he felt, "I guess I should have checked if this planet was uninhabited before I crashed my ship here." The alien Huntress tilted her head, studying him with those unsettling pale eyes. Then, to Kyle's absolute shock, she spoke. "Firebringer," she said, her voice melodic, but with an accent unlike anything Kyle had ever heard. "You are far from your star." Haha, Kyle's mouth fell open. "You speak English?" The Huntress stepped closer, the firelight dancing across her silvery skin. "We speak many tongues. Yours is simple." One of her companions made a sound that might have been laughter, and Kyle felt a flush of indignation despite his precarious situation. "I'm Lieutenant Kyle Mercer, United Earth Fleet," he said, straightening his posture despite the pain in his ribs. "My ship was attacked. I didn't mean to trespass on your world." The leader studied him for a long moment, then gestured to the fire. You bring light to the darkness. On the coldest night, she touched her chest. I am Nara, first hunter of the Lyrian clan. Kyle relaxed slightly, though his hand remained near his weapon. Nice to meet you, Nara. I don't suppose you have a communication system I could use? Or maybe a way off this ice cube? Nara's expression remained inscrutable. The storm comes. Death follows. Your fire draws both. She glanced at the horizon, where dark clouds were gathering. Come with us, Firebringer, or join the Frozen. Kyle looked from the alien Huntresses to his meager camp, to the approaching storm. It wasn't much of a choice. Lead the way, he said, gathering his salvage supplies. As he followed Nara into the alien night, Kyle couldn't shake the feeling that he'd just jumped from the frying pan into something much more complicated than fire. The journey through the frozen wilderness was arduous. Kyle trudged behind Nara, his boots crunching through snow that reached mid-calf. The two other Huntresses flanked them, their silver skin almost luminous against the dark landscape. How much further? Kyle asked, his breath forming clouds in the frigid air. Nara glanced back, her pale eyes assessing him. Your kind tires quickly. My kind usually doesn't crash land on ice planets, Kyle retorted, then immediately regretted his tone. Antagonizing his only hope for survival wasn't the smartest move. To his surprise, Nara's lips curved into something resembling a smile. You have spirit, Firebringer. Good. The weak do not survive the long dark. They crested a ridge and Kyle stopped short. Below them, nestled in a valley protected from the howling winds, stood a settlement unlike anything he'd seen before. Structures of bone and ice rose from the snow, their surfaces adorned with intricate carvings that caught the starlight. Steam rose from vents in the ground, suggesting geothermal heat sources beneath. The hearth of Lyria, Nara announced with unmistakable pride. Our home since the Great Exile. As they descended toward the settlement, Kyle noticed movement. More of the silver-skinned aliens emerging from dwellings, their attention fixed on him. Most were female, he realized, with only a few males visible among them. Your arrival will cause interest, Nara said, noticing his observation. Male visitors are rare and valued among my people. Valued? Kyle asked, suddenly wary. The huntress beside Nara, who had introduced herself as Vela during their journey, laughed softly. She means our females will compete for your attention, human. Your kind is compatible with ours and new bloodlines are precious. Kyle nearly stumbled. I'm sorry, what? Vela speaks too freely, Nara said sharply, though Kyle caught a flash of something in her eyes. Possessiveness, perhaps. You are a guest of the first hunter. None will claim you without my permission. Claim me? Kyle's voice rose an octave. Look, I appreciate the rescue, but I'm not some prize to be. The storm comes, Nara interrupted, pointing to the horizon where dark clouds boiled. We will discuss customs later. They entered the settlement, where Kyle became the center of intense scrutiny. Lyrian females of various ages gathered, whispering among themselves as they studied him. Their silver skin, Kyle now noticed, had subtle patterns unique to each individual, like fingerprints. Nara led him to one of the larger structures. Inside, it was surprisingly warm. Furs covered the floor and a central fire pit cast dancing shadows on walls decorated with weapons and what appeared to be star charts. You will stay here, Nara said. My dwelling. Kyle raised an eyebrow. With you? Is that objectionable? There was a challenge in her tone. Despite his exhaustion and the absurdity of his situation, Kyle felt a rush of heat that had nothing to do with the fire. Nara was undeniably attractive, in an alien, predatory way that both unnerved and intrigued him. Not objectionable, he said carefully, just unexpected. Nara approached him close enough that he could feel the unusual heat radiating from her body. Your enemies are our enemies, Kyle Mercer. The Scythian raiders have long plagued our hunting grounds, stealing our resources, killing our people. So that's why you're helping me? Enemy of my enemy? That is one reason. Her pale eyes studied him with unsettling intensity. There are others. Before Kyle could respond, a horn sounded from outside, deep and resonant. The council summons, Nara said. They will want to know of the Scythian presence. And of you. What should I expect? Questions, many questions. She reached out, her fingers brushing his jaw in a gesture that seemed both possessive and curious. And challenges. The other hunters will test your worth. My worth as what? An ally? Or breeding stock? He couldn't keep the edge from his voice. Nara's expression softened slightly. Both, perhaps. My people value strength, courage, and new perspectives. You have already shown the first two. The third remains to be seen. She moved toward the entrance, then paused. Rest. Eat. There is food by the fire. I will return after the council meeting. As she turned to leave, Kyle caught her arm. The contact sent an unexpected jolt through him. Her skin was smooth and warm, almost feverishly so against the surrounding cold. Nara, he said, suddenly aware of how close they stood. Thank you for saving my life. Something flickered in her pale eyes, surprise perhaps, or appreciation. You brought fire to the darkness, Kyle Mercer. Perhaps you will bring more to the Lyrians than just your blood. After she left, Kyle sank down beside the fire, his mind reeling. In less than a day, he'd been shot down, stranded on an alien world, and apparently become a prized potential mate for a race of silver-skinned huntresses. And despite everything, the danger, the cultural chasm between them, the uncertainty of his future, he couldn't deny the pull he felt toward Nara. There was something in her fierce pride, her direct manner, that resonated with him. Humanity, you've really done it this time, he muttered to himself, staring into the flames. But beneath his exhaustion, a spark of excitement kindled. Whatever happened next, it wouldn't be boring. Kyle awoke to the sound of voices outside Nara's dwelling. He dozed off beside the fire, exhaustion finally claiming him despite his precarious situation. Now, refreshed, but still wary, he straightened his flight suit and ran a hand through his hair, trying to make himself presentable for whatever came next. The entrance flap parted, and Nara stepped inside. She'd changed from her hunting attire into something more formal, a fitted garment of silvery material that complemented her luminescent skin, adorned with what appeared to be small bones and polished stones. The council awaits, she said, her pale eyes assessing him. Are you prepared? Kyle stood, squaring his shoulders. As I'll ever be. Any advice? Speak truth, but speak with strength, Nara replied. The council respects honesty, but not weakness. She approached him, adjusting his collar with surprising gentleness. And do not accept any direct challenges without consulting me first. Challenges? Kyle raised an eyebrow. Some hunters may seek to claim you for themselves. Her fingers lingered at his collar. It is our way when new blood enters the clan. And what about you? Kyle asked, holding her gaze. Are you claiming me? Something flashed in Nara's eyes. Heat, possessiveness, desire. I found you. By right of discovery, you are under my protection. Her voice lowered. What happens beyond that is for us to decide, together. The air between them seemed to crackle with unspoken tension. Kyle was acutely aware of her proximity, the unusual warmth radiating from her skin, the alien yet alluring scent of her. Let's get through this council meeting first, he said, his voice rougher than intended. Nara led him through the settlement to a large circular structure at its center. Inside, a ring of raised stone seats surrounded a central fire pit. 7 Lyrians occupied these seats, all female, all wearing elaborate adornments that marked their status. As Kyle entered with Nara, conversation ceased. All eyes turned to him, studying him with varying degrees of curiosity, skepticism, and unmistakable interest. First Hunter, spoke an older Lyrian with silver-white hair and intricate facial markings. You bring a stranger to our hearth during the long dark. Explain. High Elder, Nara responded, her posture respectful but undiminished. I bring a warrior of the human race. His vessel was attacked by Scythian raiders in our skies. He fought and survived, bringing fire to the darkness on the coldest night. Murmurs rippled through the council. The High Elder raised a hand for silence. Human, she addressed Kyle directly. What do they call you? Lieutenant Kyle Mercer, United Earth Fleet, he replied, standing straight as if addressing his own commanders. And why have the Scythians pursued you to our world? Kyle considered his answer carefully. My fleet was responding to distress calls from trading vessels in this sector. The Scythians have been raiding shipping lanes, taking resources and slaves. We engaged their forces, but my fighter was damaged, and I was forced to make an emergency landing. The human speaks truth, came a voice from the side. A male Lyrian stepped forward, the first Kyle had seen up close. He was taller than the females, with broader shoulders and more pronounced facial features, but shared the same silvery skin. Our scouts have reported increased Scythian activity in the outer reaches. War Chief Terran, the High Elder acknowledged. You believe this human's presence signifies a larger threat? I do, the War Chief nodded. The Scythians have avoided direct confrontation with us for generations. If they now hunt in our skies, they grow bold or desperate. One of the council members, a huntress with sharp features and calculating eyes, leaned forward. Or perhaps they simply pursue this human. We know nothing of his kind or their conflicts. I can tell you about humanity, Kyle offered. We're explorers and defenders. We believe in freedom and self-determination for all sentient species. The Scythians' practice of raiding and enslaving goes against everything we stand for. Noble words, the skeptical council member replied, yet many species claim virtue while practicing conquest. Kylie met her gaze steadily. Judge us by our actions, then. I'm one man, stranded on your world. If I meant harm, would I stand before you unarmed, seeking alliance? A murmur of approval rippled through some council members. The war chief nodded slightly, a gesture of respect. The skeptical huntress wasn't finished. If he is so valuable an ally, why does the first hunter keep him to herself? Such a resource should be shared among all clans. Nara stepped forward, her posture subtly shifting to place herself between Kyle and the challenging huntress. By right of discovery, he is under my protection. The human ways are not our ways. They form pair bonds, not clan bonds. Is this true? The High Elder asked Kyle. Yes, Kyle replied, sensing the cultural minefield he was navigating. Humans typically form exclusive partnerships. The challenging huntress stood. Then I invoke the right of contest. If the human's ways allow for single pairing, let him choose the worthiest among us. A tense silence fell over the chamber. Kyle felt Nara stiffen beside him. The right is acknowledged, the High Elder said finally. Hunter Mita may challenge First Hunter Nara for the claim of protection over the human. She turned to Kyle. Unless you wish to declare your preference now and spare blood? All eyes turned to him. Kyle felt the weight of alien customs and expectations pressing down on him. But through the confusion and pressure, one thing was clear. The connection he felt with Nara went beyond mere gratitude or physical attraction. There was a mutual respect, a recognition of kindred spirits despite their different origins. Where I come from, Kyle said carefully, individuals make their own choices about partnerships. No contests, no claims. He turned to face Nara, his decision made. And I choose Nara, first hunter of the Lyrian clan. The council chamber erupted in murmurs. Nara's eyes widened slightly, a flash of genuine emotion breaking through her composed exterior. The challenging huntress, Mita, hissed in displeasure but stepped back, the challenge withdrawn. The High Elder raised her hand for silence. It is decided. The human remains under the protection of the first hunter, her pale eyes fixed on Kyle. Now let us speak of Scythians and war and what your Earth fleet might offer the Lyrian people. The Scythians have attacked our people for generations, War Chief Terran explained as he led Kyle and Nara across the frozen tundra the following morning, but never with such boldness as we've seen recently. Kyle trudged through the snow, grateful for the thermal garments the Lyrians had provided. They fit snugly over his flight suit, their alien material somehow both lightweight and incredibly warm. What changed? Kyle asked, scanning the horizon. The storm had passed overnight, leaving a pristine white landscape under a pale blue sky. That is what we must discover, Terran replied grimly, and why I bring you to the field of fallen stars. They crested a ridge and Kyle stopped short. Below them stretched a massive crater, at least a mile across. Within it lay the scattered remains of dozens, perhaps hundreds, of spacecraft. Some were clearly ancient, half buried in ice and snow. Others appeared more recent, their hulls still gleaming where the sun caught them. "Holy!" Kyle whispered. "A spaceship graveyard." "A battlefield," Nara corrected, her breath forming clouds in the cold air. "The Scythians have been trying to claim our world for centuries. This is where we have always stopped them." Terran gestured for them to follow as he began descending into the crater. The Lyrians were once a spacefaring people. When the Scythians first came, we fought them in the stars, but each battle cost us ships we could not replace. "You were driven back to the surface," Kyle realized. "Yes, now we fight with more primitive methods." Terran's expression hardened. "But we still fight." As they reached the floor of the crater, Kyle was struck by the diversity of the wrecked vessels. Some were clearly Lyrian, with the same elegant, organic curves he'd seen in their architecture. Others were angular and predatory, Scythian, he assumed. But there were other designs too, alien configurations he couldn't identify. "We're not the first to crash here," Kyle observed. "Many travelers have found our world," Nara said, walking close beside him. "Few have left it." Kyle paused beside a particularly massive wreck, half buried in ice. Its design was unlike the others, more functional, less alien. "This one," he began, brushing snow from a panel. "We call it the Earth ship," Terran said, watching Kyle carefully. "It fell from the stars 3 generations ago." Kyle's heart skipped a beat as his gloved hand revealed a faded insignia, the United Earth Fleet emblem, an older version than his own, but unmistakable. "It's human," he breathed, "a UEF exploration vessel." He turned to Terran. "Were there survivors?" The war chief exchanged a glance with Nara. "One, a male, like you. He lived among us for many seasons before his body failed him." "He taught us much about humans," Nara added softly. "This is why we recognize your kind." Kyle felt a strange mix of emotions, grief for the lost crew, hope that humans had been here before, and a new understanding of why the Lyrians had accepted him so readily. "I need to see inside," he said. Terran led them to a breach in the hull. Years of exposure had taken their toll, but the ship's interior was partially preserved, protected from the worst of the elements. "The command center is this way," Terran said, navigating the tilted corridors with practiced ease. The bridge was a ruin of frost-covered consoles and collapsed ceiling panels. Kyle moved through it reverently, touching the frozen remains of human technology. "This is an Explorer-class survey ship," he said. "Early model, at least 80 years old?" He brushed ice from a console. "If I can get power to the emergency systems..." "You seek to contact your people," Nara observed, watching him closely. "Yes," Kyle met her gaze. "My fleet needs to know about the Scythian threat here," and he hesitated. "I need to tell them about the Lyrians." Something passed between them, an unspoken question about what his return to human space would mean for their developing bond. Terran interrupted the moment, pointing to a display at the far end of the bridge. "Look there." Kyle followed his gesture and froze. The display, somehow still partially functional after all these years, showed a tactical scan of the system. Red markers indicated Scythian vessels, dozens of them, gathering at the system's edge. "This can't be current," Kyle said, studying the date stamp. "This is from yesterday." "The Earth ship's sensors still function, drawing power from what remains of its core," Terran explained. "We have used it to monitor Scythian movements for generations." "This isn't a raiding party," Kyle said grimly. "It's an invasion fleet." Nara's expression darkened. "They come for us at last." "Not just you," Kyle realized, studying the tactical display. "This system sits at a strategic junction between Earth space and 3 major trade routes. If the Scythians establish a base here, then your people will also suffer," Terran concluded. Kyle turned to them, determination hardening his features. "I need to get the ship's long-range communicator working. If I can contact my fleet, we can stop the Scythians before they launch their invasion." "What will you need?" Nara asked. "Parts from my fighter, power cells, and time." Kyle looked between them. "And I'll need to teach your people how to defend against orbital bombardment." Terran nodded grimly. "I will gather our best warriors." As the war chief moved away to examine another part of the bridge, Nara stepped closer to Kyle. Her silver skin seemed to glow in the dim light filtering through the broken hull above. "If you succeed, she said quietly, will you leave with your fleet?" The question hung between them, heavy with implication. Kyle reached out, his gloved hand finding hers. "I don't know what happens next," he admitted, "but whatever comes, I don't want to leave you behind." Nara's pale eyes searched his. "Last night, after the council, you chose me publicly. Among my people, such a declaration has meaning." "It has meaning for me, too," Kyle said, suddenly aware of how close they stood. The cold around them seemed to fade as heat built between their bodies. "Tonight," Nara said, her voice low and intimate, "we will complete the bonding ritual. It will strengthen both of us for the battle to come." Kyle felt his pulse quicken at the promise in her words. "I look forward to learning more about Lyrian rituals." A smile curved Nara's lips, predatory yet affectionate. "And I look forward to teaching you, Firebringer." The moment was interrupted by Terran's return. If the war chief noticed their proximity or the charged atmosphere between them, he gave no sign. "We should return to the settlement," he said. "The sun falls quickly, and we must prepare our defenses." As they made their way back across the frozen battlefield, Kyle's mind raced with plans. Both for the coming conflict with the Scythians and for the night ahead with Nara, one thing was certain: his life had changed irrevocably since lighting that fire in the darkness. Night had fallen by the time Kyle finished rigging the long-range communicator. He'd spent hours salvaging parts from his downed fighter and integrating them with the ancient Earthship systems. His fingers were numb from the cold despite the thermal gloves, but satisfaction warmed him as the console finally hummed to life. "United Earth Fleet, this is Lieutenant Kyle Mercer. I decode Alpha 79 Delta 2, transmitting on emergency channel. Do you copy?" Static crackled through the speakers. Kyle adjusted the frequency, boosting the signal strength with a jury-rigged amplifier. "United Earth Fleet, this is Lieutenant Mercer. I've encountered a Scythian invasion force gathering in the Lyrian system, requesting immediate assistance." More static than a faint voice broke through the interference. "Tenant Mercer, signal weak? Position? Confirm a Scythian presence." Kyle leaned forward eagerly. "Yes. Scythian invasion force. At least 30 vessels. They're preparing to attack a previously unknown sentient species called the Lyrians. The system is at coordinates." He rattled off the stellar positioning data from the ship's navigational system. The response came through clearer this time. "Lieutenant, this is Captain Reeves of the UEF Dauntless. We're tracking your signal. Be advised, nearest battle group is 3 days from your position at maximum speed." Kyle's heart sank. "Captain, the Scythians will attack within 24 hours. "Understood, Lieutenant. We're dispatching all available units, but you'll need to hold out until we arrive. Transmitting tactical data now." The console beeped as it received the incoming data package. Kyle downloaded it to a portable device he'd cobbled together from his fighter systems. "Received, Captain. I'll do what I can here. Good luck, Lieutenant. Earth Fleet out." As the transmission ended, Kyle became aware of Nara standing in the doorway of the bridge. How long she'd been there, he wasn't sure. "Your people come," she stated. "Yes, but not soon enough." Kyle stood, stretching his stiff muscles. "The Scythians will be here before our fleet arrives. We'll need to defend ourselves." Nara approached, her movements fluid and graceful even in the cramped confines of the damaged ship. "Then we will fight, as we have always fought. But this time you'll have human ingenuity on your side." Kyle held up the data device. "And Earth Fleet tactical information on Scythian weaknesses." A smile curved Nara's lips. "The Council awaits your wisdom, Firebringer." As they exited the ship and made their way across the frozen battlefield, the twin moons of Lyria cast an ethereal glow over the landscape. Kyle found himself studying Nara's profile in the silvery light. The past days had created a bond between them that transcended their different origins, a connection forged in danger and mutual respect. "You're staring," Nara observed without looking at him. "Sorry," Kyle replied. "Not sorry at all. Just thinking about how extraordinary you are." Extraordinary? She glanced at him, her pale eyes reflecting the moonlight. How so? Where I come from, most people would panic if their world was about to be invaded. You're calm, focused. Fear serves no purpose in the hunt, Nara said simply. We face what comes. They walked in companionable silence for a moment before she spoke again. Tonight is the frost moon, she said, gesturing to the larger of the two satellites overhead. A time of bonding among my people. Kyle felt a pleasant tension build between them. The ritual you mentioned? Yes, her voice lowered, taking on a husky quality that sent a shiver down his spine. It strengthens warriors before battle, joins their spirits. Sounds beneficial, Kyle managed, suddenly very aware of her proximity. Nara stopped walking, turning to face him fully. Without the height difference of his earth-bred body, their eyes were nearly level. Do you wish to join with me, Kyle Mercer? To share strength before we face the Scythians? The directness of her question was startlingly refreshing. No games, no pretense, just honest desire. Yep, he answered, equally direct. I do. Her smile was both predatory and tender. Then we will complete the ritual when we return. But first, we must prepare our people for war. The Lyrian settlement was abuzz with activity when they arrived. Warriors sharpened weapons, huntresses checked bowstrings, and even the youngest members were engaged in preparations. In the central meeting hall, the council and war chief Terran awaited them. Kyle presented his tactical data, explaining the Scythians' typical attack patterns and vulnerabilities. They rely heavily on energy weapons, he explained, projecting images from his device onto a makeshift screen. But their ships have weak points in their ventral armor. If we can salvage weapons from the downed ships in the crater, we might be able to create ground-to-space defenses. Our ancestors left weapons in the sacred caves, Terran said thoughtfully. Energy bows that could pierce the sky. Kyle nodded eagerly. Perfect. We'll need those, and we can set traps in the valley approaches. The Scythians will likely send ground forces once they realize the settlement is defended. For hours they planned and strategized. Kyle was impressed by the Lyrians' quick grasp of tactical concepts and their innovative suggestions for integrating their hunting techniques with modern warfare. By the time the meeting concluded, a comprehensive defense plan was in place. Teams were dispatched to retrieve the ancient weapons, set up observation posts, and prepare ambush points. As the council members dispersed, Nara approached Kyle. You have given my people hope, she said quietly. No small gift in dark times. I've given them a fighting chance, Kyle corrected. The rest is up to all of us. She took his hand, her skin warm against his. Come. The preparations are made. Now we must strengthen ourselves for what lies ahead. Nara led him through the settlement to her dwelling. Inside, the fire pit blazed with blue-tinged flames, casting dancing shadows on the walls. Furs and soft fabrics had been arranged around it, creating an intimate space that radiated warmth and comfort. The bonding ritual, Nara explained, closing the entrance flap behind them, joins two warriors in body and spirit. It is sacred among my people. Kyle felt a mixture of desire and reverence as he watched her move around the space, lighting small vessels that released a sweet, spicy aroma into the air. Among human, he said, such joining is also sacred, though we express it in different ways. Nara approached him, her pale eyes reflecting the blue flames. Show me your ways, Firebringer, and I will show you mine. As their lips met for the first time, Kyle knew with certainty that whatever happened tomorrow with the Scythians, this moment, this connection between human and Lyrian, was worth fighting for. Kyle awoke to Nara's gentle but urgent touch on his shoulder. The fire had burned low, casting the dwelling in soft shadows. For a moment, he simply admired her silvery skin against the furs, still marveling at the connection they'd forged through the bonding ritual. Listen, she whispered, her body tense with alertness. Kyle stilled his breathing. At first, he heard nothing but the soft crackle of embers and the distant howl of wind. Then, a faint sound, metal against metal, a whispered command in a harsh, unfamiliar language. Scythians, he breathed. Nara nodded, already reaching for her weapons. Scout team, they've breached our outer perimeter. Kyle slipped from the warmth of their shared furs. pulling on his flight suit with practiced efficiency. The pleasant languor from their night together vanished, replaced by combat readiness. "How many?" he asked, checking his pulse pistol. "6, perhaps 8, Nara replied, securing her bow and quiver. "Too few for a full attack." They seek information. A distant scream pierced the night, followed by shouts of alarm. Kyle and Nara exchanged a glance before rushing outside. The settlement was in controlled chaos. Warriors moved with purpose, securing dwellings and gathering at defensive positions. Warchief Terran approached them, his face grim. "They've taken the High Elder and 2 others," he reported. "Small team, heavily armed. They're retreating toward the eastern ridge." "Hostages," Kyle muttered. "They want to study your defenses before the main attack." Nara's eyes flashed with cold fury. "The High Elder knows all our plans." "Then we need to get her back," Kyle said decisively. "Fast strike team, minimal equipment for maximum speed." Terran nodded in agreement. "I'll gather our best hunters." "No," Nara countered. "Too many will slow us down and alert them to our approach. Kyle and I will go, with Vela and Kieran as flankers." The war chief looked skeptical but didn't argue. "The storm returned," he warned, gesturing to the darkening sky. "It will cover your approach, but also hide their trail." "I can track them," Nara assured him. "Their scent is wrong on our world." Within minutes, they were equipped and moving out. Kyle had traded his bulkier flight suit components for the lighter Lyrian cold weather gear, allowing greater mobility. Beside him, Nara moved like a ghost across the snow, barely leaving footprints. Vela and Kieran, another experienced huntress, flanked them at a distance, communicating through subtle hand signals. The storm intensified as they tracked the Scythians through the darkness. Snow swirled around them, reducing visibility to mere meters. But Nara never hesitated. She followed signs invisible to Kyle's human eyes. Disturbed snow crystals, broken ice formations, the faintest traces of alien scent. "They're slowing," she whispered after nearly an hour of pursuit. "The storm confuses them." Kyle peered through the swirling white. Ahead, barely visible, dark shapes moved against the snow. The Scythians were hulking figures, at least a head taller than him, with broad shoulders and thick limbs encased in angular armor. Between them stumbled 3 smaller forms, the Lyrian captives. The High Elder was at the center, her silver-white hair visible even through the storm. She walked with dignity, despite her bonds, refusing to be hurried by her captor's shoves. Kyle signaled to Nara, indicating a flanking maneuver. She nodded, melting into the storm to circle right while he went left. Vela and Kieran would maintain their positions, creating a loose perimeter. Drawing closer, Kyle could now see the Scythians clearly. Their armor was black and red, with jagged protrusions that seemed designed to intimidate as much as protect. Their faces were hidden behind angular helmets with glowing red visors. Kyle activated his communicator, a small device salvaged from his fighter and modified to work with the Lyrians' own communication methods. "I count 8 Scythians, 3 captives. The High Elder appears unharmed." "Confirmed," came Nara's whispered response. "They've stopped at the ice shelf, setting up equipment." Kyle crept closer, using a snowdrift for cover. The Scythians had indeed halted, forming a defensive circle, while 2 of their number assembled what appeared to be a portable communications array. "They're calling their ship," Kyle realized. "Once they report our defenses, the main fleet will know exactly where to strike." "We attack now," Nara decided, "on my signal." Kyle readied his pulse pistol, setting it to maximum stun. Killing the Scythians would be satisfying, but capturing one for interrogation could provide valuable intelligence. Nara's signal came not as a sound, but as an action, a silver-tipped arrow that flashed through the storm to bury itself in the communications array. Sparks flew as the delicate equipment shorted out. The Scythians reacted instantly, energy weapons powering up with an ominous hum. But they were looking outward, expecting an attack from the perimeter. Kyle seized the moment, charging from his hiding place directly into their circle. The element of surprise was total. The Scythians never expected an attack from within. His first shot caught a Scythian square in the chest, the pulse energy overwhelming its armor systems and sending it crashing to the ground. His second shot missed as the aliens scattered, but it created the chaos he needed. Nara and the other Huntresses struck simultaneously, arrows finding gaps in armor with uncanny precision. 2 more Scythians fell, their strange, gurgling cries lost in the howling wind. Kyle tackled the High Elder to the ground as energy bolts sizzled through the air where she had stood a moment before. "Stay down!" he shouted, rolling to return fire. The battle became a blur of motion and sound. The Scythians fought with brutal efficiency, but they were unprepared for the combination of Lyrian hunting prowess and human tactical training. Kyle found himself fighting back-to-back with Nara, her bow abandoned for twin hunting knives that flashed silver in the darkness. They moved together with a synchronicity that felt almost supernatural, a result of their bonding, he realized. Each anticipated the other's movements perfectly, creating a deadly dance that the Scythians couldn't counter. "The last 2 are retreating," Vela called out, notching another arrow. "Let one escape," Kyle ordered, surprising the Huntresses. "We want them to report that taking Lyrian hostages is a bad idea." Nara gave him a fierce grin, understanding his strategy immediately. Kieran wound the trailing one, let the leader flee. An arrow whistled through the storm, striking a Scythian in the leg. It stumbled but continued its retreat, disappearing into the swirling white alongside its companion. As quickly as it had begun, the fight was over. 5 Scythian warriors lay dead or unconscious in the snow. The 3 Lyrian captives were shaken but largely unharmed. The High Elder approached Kyle and Nara, her pale eyes evaluating them with new respect. "You fight as one," she observed. "The bonding is strong between you." Kyle felt a flush of warmth despite the biting cold. The connection he'd formed with Nara went beyond physical attraction or even emotional attachment. It was a partnership of equals, forged in both tenderness and battle. "We should return quickly," Nara said, scanning the horizon. "The survivor will report to their ship. The main attack may come sooner now." Kyle nodded, helping secure the unconscious Scythian for transport. "Then we better be ready. I have an idea that might give us an edge, something the Scythians won't expect from primitive hunters." As they made their way back to the settlement, Kyle explained his plan. The High Elder listened intently, her expression shifting from skepticism to calculation to approval. "Bold," she said, finally, "perhaps even foolish. But as you humans might say, sometimes the boldest hunt yields the greatest prize." Kyle grinned at her use of human phrasing. "Exactly. And if there's one thing humans excel at, it's turning disadvantages into strengths." Nara's hand found his as they walked, a brief squeeze conveying both affection and solidarity. "Together then," she said, "human and Lyrian, we will show the Scythians what happens when they hunt the hunters." Dawn broke over the field of fallen stars, painting the wreckage of ancient battles in hues of gold and crimson. Kyle stood at the edge of the massive crater, watching as Lyrian hunters took their positions among the twisted metal graves of spacecraft. "It's almost poetic," he said as Nara joined him, using a graveyard to create another. She slipped her hand into his, her silver skin warm against his palm. "Your plan honors those who fell here before. Their vessels will serve one final purpose." The plan was audacious, perhaps even foolhardy. Kyle had reconfigured the ancient Earthship's remaining systems to broadcast a false settlement signature. Heat patterns, energy readings, and communications that would appear to the Scythians as the main Lyrian stronghold. Meanwhile, the actual settlement had been partially evacuated, with only warriors remaining behind as a secondary defense. The real trap lay here, in the field of fallen stars. Lyrian hunters armed with salvaged energy weapons and their traditional bows were concealed throughout the crater. When the Scythian fleet arrived, they would focus their initial bombardment on the false target. As their ground forces deployed to secure what they believed was an abandoned settlement, Kyle would spring the trap. The captive Scythian confirmed their attack plan, War Chief Taryn reported as he approached. "They will strike within the hour." Kyle nodded grimly. "And the Earth fleet?" "Still 18 hours away according to your last communication." "Then we hold until they arrive." Kyle surveyed their preparations one last time. "Is everyone in position?" "All warriors are ready," Taryn confirmed. "The High Elder sends her blessing." A distant rumble drew their attention skyward. Through breaks in the clouds, dark shapes appeared, the Scythian warships entering the atmosphere. "It begins," Nara murmured. Kyle squeezed her hand once before releasing it. They had shared one more night together after the rescue mission, their bond deepening with each passing hour. Now facing what might be their final battle together, he found himself thinking not of Earth or duty, but of a future alongside this remarkable alien woman. "Remember," he said to both Nara and Terran, "wait for my signal. Let them commit fully to the trap before we spring it." From their vantage point, they watched as the Scythian fleet positioned itself above the false target. Energy weapons powered up, their glow visible even at this distance. Then, with devastating precision, they opened fire. The ground shook as bombardment rained down on the empty tundra where the Earth ship broadcast its false signals. Snow and ice vaporized, revealing bare rock beneath. Had the real settlement been there, nothing would have survived. "Now they send ground forces," Terran predicted. Sure enough, smaller craft detached from the main vessels, descending toward the bombarded area. Kyle counted at least 20 troop transports, far more than they had anticipated. "They're committing everything," he said, a chill running down his spine that had nothing to do with the cold. "They want to end this today." Nara's expression hardened. "Then so shall we." Kyle activated his communicator. "All units, stand by. Wait for the transports to land and deploy. Remember your targets." Minutes stretched like hours as they watched the Scythian forces land and begin searching the false settlement area. Confusion was evident in their movements as they found nothing but scorched earth where their sensors indicated a thriving community should be. "Now," Kyle ordered. Across the crater, concealed Lyrian warriors activated the salvage weapon systems Kyle had helped them position. Energy beams lanced upward from a dozen locations, striking the unsuspecting Scythian ships from below. Simultaneously, hunters with modified bows launched specialized arrows at the ground forces, arrows tipped with explosive compounds salvaged from crashed fighters. Chaos erupted among the Scythian ranks. Their ships, designed to withstand frontal assaults, had weaker shielding on their undersides. Several smaller vessels immediately lost power, plummeting to the ground. The larger ships began evasive maneuvers, but the scattered firing positions made it impossible to target all threats at once. "It's working!" Terran exclaimed, his usual stoicism breaking into fierce joy. Kyle wasn't celebrating yet. "They'll adapt quickly. We need to press the advantage." He led Nara and Terran down into the crater, where they joined a group of warriors manning one of the larger salvage weapon emplacements. Kyle took control, adjusting the targeting systems to focus on the largest Scythian vessel, the command ship. "Aim for the propulsion systems," he instructed. "If we can ground it, their command structure will fracture." The weapon hummed with power as Kyle locked onto his target. The massive Scythian command ship was already turning, bringing its main weapons to bear on their position. "Fire!" Kyle commanded. The energy beam struck true, connecting with the ship's engine housing. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a silent flash that lit up the sky, the propulsion system detonated. The command ship listed dramatically, its symmetry broken, weapons firing wildly as it struggled to maintain altitude. Again! Kyle targeted a second critical system. Before they could fire, a Scythian transport appeared over the ridge, disgorging troops directly into their position. Nara reacted instantly, her bow singing as she loosed arrow after arrow into the advancing enemies. "Defend the weapon!" Terran rallied nearby warriors to form a perimeter. The battle became a desperate close-quarters fight. Kyle abandoned the targeting controls to join Nara, his pulse pistol dropping Scythians as they charged their position. The bond between them manifested physically. They moved in perfect coordination, covering each other's blind spots, anticipating each other's needs without words. A Scythian warrior broke through, its massive form bearing down on Kyle with a vibro blade humming with lethal energy. Before it could strike, an arrow pierced its visor. It toppled backward, the blade discharging harmlessly into the snow. Kyle glanced at Nara, who already had another arrow knocked. "Thanks for that." "I've grown rather fond of you, Wani," she replied with a fierce grin. "It would be inconvenient if you died now." The skies above them erupted with new energy signatures, but not Scythian. Sleek, angular ships with the unmistakable profile of Earthfleet fighters streaked across the atmosphere, engaging the remaining Scythian vessels. "They're early," Kyle exclaimed, joy surging through him. "Your people are full of surprises Nara observed, loosing another arrow at a retreating Scythian. The arrival of Earth forces turned the tide decisively. Caught between orbital bombardment from above and the Lyrian ambush from below, the Scythian invasion force crumbled. Their remaining ships attempted to retreat, but the superior speed and maneuverability of the Earth fighters prevented their escape. Within an hour, it was over. The Scythian threat had been eliminated, their invasion crushed before it truly began. The field of fallen stars had claimed new additions to its grim collection. As Earth shuttles landed near the crater's edge, Kyle found himself facing an unexpected dilemma. His duty called him back to his fleet, to report and resume his service. Yet his heart pulled him toward Nara and the life they might build together. Captain Reeves of the UEF Dauntless was the first to approach, his expression a mixture of relief and admiration as Kyle made his report. Remarkable work, Lieutenant, the captain said when Kyle finished. The Admiralty will want to establish formal relations with the Lyrians immediately. This system is too strategically valuable to leave unprotected. The Lyrians have protected themselves for generations, sir, Kyle pointed out. They don't need our protection. They need our respect and alliance. The captain studied him thoughtfully. You've come to care for these people? Yes, sir. Particularly one of them. Kyle's gaze found Nara, who stood proudly among her fellow hunters, her silver skin gleaming in the sunlight. Understanding dawned in the captain's eyes. I see. Well, Lieutenant, it so happens we're establishing a permanent liaison office here. We'll need someone who understands both cultures, someone the Lyrians already trust. Hope kindled in Kyle's chest. Are you offering me the position, sir? Pending Admiralty approval, which I'm certain will be granted given your heroics. The captain smiled. Consider it your new assignment, effective immediately. Later, as celebrations began in both the Lyrian settlement and among the Earth Fleet personnel, Kyle found a moment alone with Nara atop the ridge where they had first spotted the Scythian ships. Your captain says you're staying, she said, her pale eyes searching his. If you'll have me, Kyle replied. I'm to be the official liaison between Earth and Lyria. A convenient title, Nara observed with a hint of amusement. And what of us? What title would you give that? Kyle took her hands in his. Where I come from, when two people share what we share, there's a special bond. A partnership for life, ain't? Marriage, Nara said, surprising him with her knowledge of the human term. The other human who came before spoke of it. It is not unlike our bonding ritual, though more permanent. Is that something you would want? Kyle asked, suddenly nervous despite all they'd been through together. Nara's response was to pull him close, her lips finding his in a kiss that conveyed everything words could not. When they finally parted, her eyes held a warmth that rivaled the distant sun. You lit a fire in the darkness, Kyle Mercer, she said softly, and found not just me, but a new home. Yes, I would join with you in your human way, as we have already joined in mine. As they stood together watching Earth ships and Lyrian hunters working side by side to secure the planet against any future threats, Kyle reflected on the strange path that had brought him here. A crash landing, a desperate fire in the darkness, and an encounter with silver-skinned huntresses that had changed everything. Sometimes, he thought, the greatest discoveries come when you're simply trying to survive. And sometimes the light you cast into the darkness brings back more than you ever dared hope for.